To say that magic has been used in serious and significant ways throughout the history of Talaran is rather an understatement. The very fabric of reality across the world is intertwined with the constant use and manipulation of the magical currents that cross the realms. Great and powerful artifacts are constantly forged and lost to all manner of fates, both benevolent and malevolent. The gods themselves meddle in the affairs of mortals time and again for their own amusement or for positioning in their constant contest in the great game. Their mark is seen to be made upon the world time and again in such chaotic and powerful fashion that at times mortals find themselves in a position to wield power that might be normally reserved for a deity. Therefore, it is impossible at times for the full consequences of these actions to truly be understood ahead of time. For example, when Emilius the Amazing of the Western Elven kingdoms waged war upon his orcish neighbors, the Elven people considered him a hero and great ruler. But in the aftermath of severely reduced orc populations, it presented a vacuum of power in the region that allowed the human city of Almera to thrive and grow. And as we all know now, the end of the Western Elven kingdoms came at the hand of the Almerans, not the orcish tribes. Though the surviving orcs did help, or when Callistora the Cruel set about using her magic to simultaneously assassinate all the leaders of the eastern continent at once to sow chaos and war across the realms, actually helped bring about a golden age of peace and prosperity that lasted a century. But some figures go about their task knowing or at least suspecting full well the implication of their actions, driven by some passion, fervor, or even madness to see through their decision to the end. Figures like Archmage Everon, the sorcerer Queen Hestiava, and of course the infamous Stephen Spellslinger. As with any massive act of magic, there had to be a focal point for the user to unleash upon the world their vision. While plentiful across time, these artifacts are still rare and do not go beyond the notice of the gods, especially the god of fate who is getting tired of a particular human mage disrupting her plans and cursing her oracles so they can't lie. This is, of course, one of the most well-known stories about Spellslinger, considering it's the first time Doom clashed with crap and how things would turn out shaped the world forevermore. As usual for the Spellslinger, it's an event which has been discussed with great passion on both sides of the coin, those in support of his actions and those opposed. But Steve was hardly one to get bogged down by what could be when he was focused on what should be. At least what should be in the world according to Steve. Without the aid of a god or other powerful figure to aid in his quest, of course, Spellslinger had to find himself an artifact to use. This led him to the tomb of Voklar the Vulgar, an elven archmage turned warlock from ages past of extreme power, who the other elves had tried to erase from history. They'd nearly achieved this goal too, but by simply trying to ignore the past and erase references to it, they failed to consider what would happen if someone, perhaps an extremely curious human mage, discovered the location of Voklar's fortress and final resting place. Many get into long talks about why he should or should not have done what he did. Many love to discuss this first clash between Doom and crap. Many embellish, flourish, and twist the truth to their own various means or ends in their description of the now infamous events. But this isn't really about any of this. This is simply what is that most critical of events that is as once both incredible and brief. This is about how Spellslinger commits genocide. Are you sure about this, Steve? The group was looking up at the remains of the mighty fortress before them. It had seen better days, to be sure. The volcano that used to feed the river of lava that flowed before the fortress was now long dormant, and what remained was a set of ancient stone fortifications overtaken by moss, trees, and time itself. It's right where I said it would be, isn't it? Everyone got it wrong. They heard all the stories about the lava river and stuff and kept looking around active volcanoes. They forgot just how old Voklar is. He grinned as he looked out over the structure before them, just a bridge away from them, a very old, cracked and crumbling bridge that was still 100 feet up from the black lava rock beneath it. I'm not questioning if this is the place. Sherry rolled her eyes then. I'm asking you if you're sure this is what we should do. The scroll of catastrophic ultimate death? It's not exactly a light bit of magic. It's strong, powerful, ancient stuff. Are we even sure we could use it once we get it? It's never been used by anyone other than Vokler. What if it's some sort of evil magic that you can't use? Steve just arched a brow as he looked at his half-demon, half-human girlfriend. Listen, I've said it once, I've said it 100 times. There's no good magic. There's no evil magic. There's just magic. Vokler couldn't have created some new form of it, and despite being a piece of shit, he couldn't have killed enough people for this to work through blood magic. Which means it's gotta be one of the other schools from the time period. And who happens to be able to cast all schools of magic because he's really good at it? He just smiled and spread his hands then. You promise to call Duskmaw or the Archdean if this goes as poorly as I keep expecting it to? She asked, and he nodded. I promise. But then our chance would be wasted since there's no way in any of the hells they'd let me use it. Now, are we all up for this? He looked around his group, and Sherry nodded before he looked at Fenrina, who had her usual big grin on her werehusky face. I'm all set, Steve. I don't really like killing most things, but I was totally excited once you mentioned your plan. Even her tail was wagging a bit, which made him smile before he looked over at Larry. Oh yeah, let's kill them all. Steve blinked in surprise at the dwarf who usually spoke about how the goddess of love loved all things, but not this time. So Steve just nodded and began to walk forward first across the bridge. Right, well, remember, if I fall to my death, I blame you guys for not saving me, but more importantly, the slow fall charms I got weren't the cheap ones, unlike last time, so they should work, Larry. He glared back at the dwarf, who just shrugged. I ran out of money buying that bottle of wine for the Baroness baby. Can't fault a man for believing in romance, can you? After Larry said that, Steve just snorted as the others began to follow him. He shook his head before speaking again. I sure can blame you for somehow giving me the only charm that failed. Breaking my legs fucking hurt. And don't you dare say that healing me after makes us even. Furthermore, can we discuss how it is that I seem to be the only one who has this kind of shit happen to him? Fenrina burns down a library. I said sorry. And somehow I'm the only one who actually gets set on fire. Steve continued before Larry cut in. You were standing in the fire. Don't stand in the fire next time. Not to mention, I'm the only one who gets my legs broken. You jumped first. Once I saw it was weak, I had time to shield the rest of us. Then I was the only one to get turned to ice. It was your plan to piss off the Yeti. That's on you. What about me nearly getting eaten by that fucking cat, huh? That one was your plan. Steve finally had a chance to finish accusing Larry as they walked. I really thought it would be easier to find you to make you big again. And it worked out in the end, didn't it? Whiskers didn't eat you, just a light nibble. And it was worth it because we met that cute druid after. Ooh, yeah. Good times for Larry Love that night. Yeah, I'm really friggin' happy for you. Steve then grumbled under his breath, making sure to keep his swearing to a minimum around Fenrina to make sure neither she nor Astrid picked up on it. Though Sherry would still cast evil eyes on him when she heard Astrid cursing from time to time. When they were about halfway across the bridge, when a loud voice called out from behind them, Steven! Steve froze for a moment, as then he and the others all looked back to see Arturian Uberdragon standing at the edge of the bridge with the rest of his party behind him. Your nefarious group of evildoers will go no further. Well, well. If it isn't the crap brigade. We aren't evildoers, and I thought you were supposed to be in the Crystal Hills doing the bidding of your own evil asshole of a boss, the shithead of fate. He couldn't hold back his curses when Arturian and the members of crap were involved. We aren't crap, and our goddess warned us of your evil intent. She has eyes and ears everywhere. Your wicked research has been known to us, Arturian called out. And Steve thought it over for a minute since he'd done his research in the Academy's library. It was that weird chick, wasn't it? The strange yet helpful one who kept hitting on me. Does your goddess encourage all of her spies to sleep with evildoers while actually assisting said evildoers in their task? She just seems to love the gossip and drama, doesn't she? Steve called back. You have no right to speak about our goddess, Erisia called out. Then the Elven Ranger, having only gotten angrier since the last time she tried to kill Steve. And I know you falsely imprisoned a unicorn. noble and gentle steed who was bewitched by the demonic magic of your pet slut over there, making it look like he was trying to do vile things with a young girl. You will know my vengeance for that. Are you fucking kidding me? Fartsparkle is guilty, and Sherry had nothing to do with it. You're just jealous because unicorns only like virgins and you can't unfuck yourself. Steve shot back. Arturian had to hold Arisha back as she screamed and started to charge forward before shouting back at Steve. You shall never get the scroll of catastrophic ultimate death. You will die here on this bridge and your vile days will end. Steve just grumbled as he watched the wind pick up a little to wave the cloaks of the figures on the other end of the bridge to make them look extra heroic. Why did they always get to look so good? It wasn't fair. The scud shall be mine and, well, you have to catch me first. He yanked a vial from his belt and hurled it towards them. Though it fell well short, a burst of smoke and clouds began to seep from the broken vial. Run! Inside! Gotta get to it first! He urged the others as they turned and began to run across the bridge and through the old gates of the fortress. What's the plan? Fenrina asked as they ran. Get to it first, like I said! We gotta get through the traps and challenges fast! Steve answered as they headed into the crumbling ruins of the main keep that was built into the side of the mountain behind it. Right up the stairs and to the back of the council chamber, there will be a passage behind the far wall between two small pillars, Steve said as they ran, checking the map he'd made from his research. Council chamber? Not a throne room? Sherry asked. Vogler had a council of peasants and other lower classes to help run and manage his territories. Steve nodded. Oh, well, sounds like he... She started to speak by Steve, then continued. They were all traitors who had killed their own people to help in his conquest and advocated mass executions and how to most properly terrify and subjugate the people. Oh, so, still pretty evil then? Sherry shrugged. Yeah, just egalitarian evil. Steve nodded as they headed up a set of stairs and into the council chamber in question. The wood furniture inside had degraded by this point to little more than splinters, and the iron fasteners that used to hold them together, but the two pillars were still standing before the far wall. Fenrina fastball, Steve called out. Fenrina nodded then as Larry jumped up into her arms, and the powerful werehusky hurled him forward at the stone wall, which the armored dwarf slammed through as he glowed bright with one of his divine spells to protect him. The others raced after him, jumping through the hole Larry had made. Once they were in the old passageway, a chill air rushed past them, and the torches began to magically flare up to light the way. Okay, first trap should be one of those tile walkway halls where you gotta step on tiles in the correct order, Steve mentioned as he looked at his sketches while running. What's the correct order? Sherry asked, but Steve was already pulling ingredients from his pouches. Just get out of the way! He urged and tossed the ingredients into his mouth before a burst of ice and snow came streaming forth, coating the floor of the hall before them right over the top of the tiles. Without missing a step, Steve and the rest of the party hopped onto the ice then, and slid across the trapped tiles to skip the challenge entirely. Then once they were past, he turned and tossed another vial onto the ice to make it start smoking so it would be gone by the time Crap showed up. What's next? Fenrina asked as they kept running ahead. Maze of mystery, just follow me. As they entered the maze up ahead, he had carefully sketched out what should be the correct path through, but then he saw the walls ahead of them and changed his mind. Actually, Fenrina, give me a boost. When they got up to the wall, she cupped her hands and helped boost Steve up the wall, where he quickly turned and laid down on so he could reach down and help pull Sherry up, before Fenrina simply tossed Larry up next to them. Then he helped pull Fenrina up as well. Forget the maze, just hop along the tops of the walls towards that door. He pointed in the distance as the group bypassed the maze by wall hopping. At this rate, we should have a huge lead over those crap idiots at least, Steve mentioned as they dropped down at the end to enter the next hallway. We're coming for you, evil wizard! He then heard Arturian shout from somewhere in the maze. Or not! I kind of forget for being such bastards. They're pretty adept adventurers, he muttered as they ran on, and he checked his sketches. Right next should be a test of two champions. No idea if they're still alive after all this time. They entered a large chamber with a massive four-armed stone guardian standing before them. "Halt!" it cried out as they got close and the group skid to a halt. "To test your intellect, you must answer me this riddle." The stone creation cleared its throat somehow despite being made of stone and not likely having a regular throat before speaking again. "What monster brings you chocolates and flowers before eating you?" Steve frowned and looked at the others who looked back at him. "A romanticore," the stone guardian said with a laugh. "Okay, wait. Why do dwarves have such big nostrils?" "Oh no, baby, you better not be," Larry began to growl out. "Because they have such big fingers. Ha ha, I crack me up." The guardian laughed out once more and stomped, which made the chamber shake. "What did the peasant say to the angry witch?" The group just stared up at the guardian before he grinned. "Ribbit. All right, you've been great. Go on ahead." For a moment they looked at each other before Steve just shrugged and they headed forward. But he paused then to speak to the guardian. "Oh, there are some others coming up behind us. Do you know the one about the elf and the ugly unicorn?" "Oh, I love that one." Steve just nodded as the guardian said that. "Well, tell them that one, they'll love it. And the one about the drowning dwarf." "Will do," the surprisingly cheerful guardian responded, as Steve moved on to catch up with the others as they ran across the chamber. They were waiting for him before a shadowy figure. Quite literally, a shadowy figure in fact, as it was engulfed in some sort of black fog like shadows. Or perhaps it was shadow like fog. "Halt there, adventurers. Any good people must face me in a trial of combat to prove that they have the strength worthy of advancing. Hey, are those assholes attacking Dwayne? What's wrong, do they not like his riddles?" The figure paused and they looked back to see the members of crap attacking the stone guardian. "Listen, we're in a bit of a hurry. I'm Steve of Doom." Steve waited for the echo of thunder to end as the torches flickered back to life. "And those humorless dicks are the good guys, right? And you're the evil party trying to beat them to the scroll? Say no more, fellow evildoer. We have to stick together." The shadowy figure began to move forward to go help the other guardian as Steve just blinked, a bit conflicted on if he should protest and point out, yet again, that he was not evil. But since this worked in their favor, they just moved ahead into the next hall. "Right puzzle door up ahead," he said as they got near to two large stone doors with faces carved into them. "Halt, adventurers, listen carefully, for Steve just cut off the talking door as he spoke up. "What color is the ground?" The two doors paused, and then looked at each other for a moment. Aren't you going to listen to..."